We're starting another episode. This is a Dog Talk podcast, and today we have a very, very special guest. We are honored to have so much experience and so much wisdom of the game that it was just when I was able to finally get you on the podcast and hear that you were accepting of our invitation. I was thrilled, man. I'm a basketball historian myself. I don't know, but I
Well,
think I'm a basketball historian myself. And you have, I would say now, about 60 years of experience as a coach at so many different levels, at the NBA, international, in Europe, at collegiate level. And you coached with the Detroit Pistons back in the 70s. You started at CW Post, which is now
right after I started at CW Post, I was an assistant right after I got out of the Army.
right? Okay, so you're probably 24, 25 years old when you got into coaching.
When I got into coaching, I think I was about 24, 20, yep, because I think I went in the Army at 23.
Okay,
And I spent a little less than a year in the Army because it wasn't wartime. We weren't in any trouble like we are now. We weren't in all these other countries,
right,
trying
right.
to short things up. It was right after Korea,
Wow.
and I lost some high school friends in Korea. It was
Right.
before Viet. I think it was right about the time of Vietnam. And one of my closest friends was in Laos before the
Okay.
war started in Vietnam, and then he was in Vietnam. But it was after we were not at war, and I had a critical skill. I guess I was teaching I was teaching high school. I was drafted out of a teaching job,
Wow.
and I had what they called a critical skill, which it wasn't. It was teaching history and English. But I didn't have and I played baseball in the Army. I played basketball in the Army, and then I got out of the Army. I was so happy to get out of the Army. I pitched a no hitter the night before I got out. It was crazy. It was crazy.
It was great.
And
Okay,
then,
that's good. So, I mean, during that time, how did you feel during that time when you said you were a teacher and then you're summoned to go to the army? I mean, I can imagine it
well,
with
I guess I was fortunate because I wasn't drafted
okay,
into the Army during Vietnam.
right.
And I know a lot of classmates that were. I was in college and I graduated college. I graduated from the University of Vermont.
Yeah.
And I went to work downtown in New York. And then I decided that wasn't for me. And I wanted to teach because I knew I wanted to coach. And I got drafted out of a teaching job. I went in the Army, and it was an interesting experience. I mean, it was a great experience. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
I'm really thankful that I didn't have to serve in a wartime situation like some of these guys do,
Sure.
because you never know whether you're going to come back. And but I did that for 6 months. I was a little over 6 months, almost 9 months, and then it was crazy. I got stationed in Camp Irwin, California, which
Okay.
is 25 miles from Death Valley, outside of Barstow.
Wow.
And it's an artillery and armor training center.
Wow.
And I was an information specialist, education and information specialist.
Okay. Wow.
And it's just insane. The day I got in the Army, the day I got to Camp Irwin, the first day of work, there was a guy from Oklahoma, and he said to me, "Man, what did you do before you were in the service?" I said, I was the teacher. I was a teacher on Long Island, and I got drafted out of a teaching job. He said, "There's a guy that just got out of the Army from Malvern, Long Island," which is 20 minutes from where I grew up, right? And he said he got out of the Army because he was a teacher. He said, I said, how do you do that? And he gave me all this stuff. I had to go through a whole bunch of rigmarole. But meanwhile, I worked from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock in the morning and then practiced baseball.
Oh, wow,
And,
man.
and then I got out of the Army and I got a job at CW Post. One of my high school coaches was the athletic director and football coach. And I had a teaching job, but I couldn't get a coaching job. I had no coaching job. So
Wow.
I said, can I come down and watch your guy work? He said, you better get down here as soon as you can. And this was about 2 days after I got out of service. He said, you better get down here as soon as you can because his assistant just took a job in the administration. And at that time, if you had an assistant on a college level, you were lucky. It's not like now you have 15 guys working guys out, well, like in the NBA. And I went down there and the guy said, yeah, you can be my assistant and freshman coach. And it was a part-time position. I took graduate credits and I stayed there for 4 years. I was an assistant and then went to Stony Brook and I was married at the time. I drove down to the university, just looked around. I didn't know anybody, didn't know anything. And when I came back home, I got in touch with the athletic director there. And I said, do you have any need for an assistant coach or a basketball coach? She said, we haven't started the program. We're just starting the program. And we're looking for a coach. And it's a part-time position.
So you got in.
I got that position and I was teaching in Huntington, Long Island.
Yeah.
So I drove out to Stony Brook after work every day. And I stayed there for 4 years. And then I went back to Post as an assistant because it was a better job. And I had some I was teaching a little bit at Post. And then the guy retired after 3 years. Got the same coach that I had worked with for 4 years.
Right.
And it was a very good program at that time. Right. And I became the head coach and worked there for a couple of years. And then I got into, I got a job in the European Professional Basketball League. Now,
So,
that's time.
Let's get to that. So now my co-host is here, Austin Freeman. This is Coach Brown. And,
how you doing, Coach?
I'm doing fine. How you doing, Austin?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, I see all that stuff on the back, on the wall. I should have been upstairs. We've got a sort of a man cave, and I got some stuff up there, but this is my wife's office. So. Okay. So, and the hearts, some of those she did. So the ones in the back that we can see.
I thought that was your office, Coach. I know you want to, I know you have a compassionate side. I thought that was your office.
No, I'm a lover, but that's not my office.
Yeah. So I want to give a little bit of background to our viewers and to our listeners on who Coach Brown is. Coach Brown has about 60 years of coaching experience at the NBA, NCAA, and international levels. He was a head coach of the Detroit Pistons from 1975 to 77 and spent 14 years as an NBA assistant coach, including 2 seasons with the Portland Trailblazers from 01-03. Coach Brown has also earned 3 NBA championship rings. His NBA experience has 8 years as a head coaching experience in addition to his NBA experience, he has 8 years head coaching experience at the collegiate level, including 5 years at the helm of SUNY University, Stony Brook University. His international coaching resume includes head coaching stops in Spanish ACB League, 15 seasons in Puerto Rico, and also leading the Japan women's national team to its first gold medal in 2013, the FIBA Asia Championship Games. He also has won gold medal and 2 bronze medals as a U.S. head coach at the Maccabi Games. So that's just a little bit. We can go on and on about your coaching experience and what you've done and how you've really just transitioned with the game, how you've transitioned throughout these years. And for me, I've always prided myself on knowing the history of the game of basketball and knowing who's come before me. Right. And so when I'm doing my little research to understand you, and when you became head coach of the Detroit Pistons at the time, when you became the head coach, the MVP of the league was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Say that again. When I became head coach, what?
When you became the head coach of the Detroit Pistons in the 70s,
Yeah.
the MVP of the league was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Right.
The top scorer in the league was Bob McAdoo.
Right.
And the Celtics won the title, and JoJo White was the MVP.
Right. But I had Bob Lanier.
And you had Bob Lanier, and you had Archie Clark.
I had Archie Clark, Bob Lanier, Chris Ford, M.L. Carr,
Wow.
Marvin Barnes, George Trapp,
Wow.
Eric Money, Leon Douglas. I mean, I had some really good players. I had Kevin Porter,
Right.
John Mengel, but I probably had a roster, and I inherited this roster, okay,
Right.
from Ray Scott. And I had guys that really wanted to make more money, that thought they were better than the next guy. We had 12 players that were all capable of starting. So I had to play them off against one another. And
Yeah,
it was really a very difficult situation.
I was going to say to be able to manage those talents, and
it was hard. It was difficult.
Yeah.
And I only had, you guys can probably attest to it, I only had one assistant. I had a guy named Larry Jones, who was a great player, played in the ABA, and was on a Philadelphia 76er championship team. And he was my only assistant. And
wow.
It just, he became my best friend. And I coached against him when I coached in the European Professional League right before I got to the NBA. He was coaching the team in Munich, and I was coaching the team in Tel Aviv.
Who'd you coach in Tel Aviv? What team?
I coached the team. Now, this is a European Professional League. So M.L. Carr was on that team, okay? A guy named Henry Dickerson, a guy named Roger Brown that played at Kansas, a 7-footer, but not the Roger Brown that played for the Pacers. He grew up in Brooklyn when my brother and I were in Brooklyn, and Roger played for Wingate High School.
Wow.
Okay, but and this European League was in about 7 different cities, and I had really good players. I mean, Lonnie Kruger was on that team, the coach of Oklahoma. Wow. He was on the team. A guy named Billy Paterno. Who played for Notre Dame. I mean, really, really good player. Kid named Mickey Martin from Post, Mike Macaluso, Joe Dupree. I don't know if you know Joe Dupree.
No, I don't know.
Joe Dupree played for St. John's for Luke Cornacek.
Okay.
He played a little bit of Phoenix in the NBA. A very good player. We had a lot of ABA and NBA players. Right. And we won the league, and then I knew somebody that knew Ray Scott was looking for an assistant, and he recommended me to Ray, and Ray hired me. I went out to Detroit. This is I never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I would coach in the NBA.
Really?
I thought I was going to be a small college coach in a great program, because then they only had Division I and Division II. There was no Division III. And Post had gone to the Division II championship, the Eastern Regionals, and we lost. But and then out of the blue, I got this. I went out to Detroit to interview for the job. I had no change of clothes. I had no toiletries. I thought I was going to go out, have the interview, get back on the plane, and that was going to be it.
Right.
And they asked me to stay overnight. And the rest is history. Crazy.
Wow. That's incredible, man. So I got one question before we start. My boy Free always asks the questions, but me personally, I have to ask this question. And you've seen through many years and obviously many phases of the game. Do you have a particular phase or time period that you wish was consistent, and that was something that prolonged over time? Is there a particular time, 70s, 80s, whatever, 60s, that you really love the game more than any time period?
Well, when I was in the NBA, there were, I think, 12 teams, or maybe 16 teams.
Mm,
But the ABA was in existence. And the ABA had Julius
right,
and, some really, really great players.
right.
And the four teams that transitioned to the NBA were Indiana, what was it, St. Louis,
San Antonio,
San Antonio, and which was the other
Denver.
one? Denver, exactly. My brother was coaching Denver. That's why I try to forget it. But I'm kidding. But and they had just transitioned. Those four teams just transitioned in, and so they, along with the NBA teams, and each team only had 12 players. There's no 15 players. You had 12 players, and they were all great players. I mean, Ralph Simpson played for me and played for my brother. Dan Issel, Bobby Jones played for my brother. There was some really good. Havlicek.
Didn't Monty Tao play for your brother?
What?
Monty Tao, didn't he play for your brother?
Monty Tao. He may have played for my brother. He may have played, but David played. David Thompson played.
Thompson, right.
Okay, George Gervin was in the league.
Wow.
He was playing for San Antonio. I mean, you're talking about great players. Every team had great players.
Right.
Havlicek was in the league.
Right.
Okay. I coached the first game in Boston that Bird played in.
Mm.
Okay. I mean, they said doves flying around the arena when they introduced Larry Bird. I mean, it was wow. I coached against Auerbach. I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Right.
Mind-boggling. Sam Jones. I mean, the players. Tommy Heinsohn was a great player for the Celtics.
Yeah.
The league was really tough. Now there are 32 teams, right? And there are all these players, great players. But then it was condensed. I mean, there were only 12 players on the team. And so it was in a much lesser number of players.
So
Matt was in the league. Pete Maravich was in the league.
Ooh,
I mean, these are all these legends. I mean, and they could really play. I mean, Oscar.
Right.
Kareem.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, I could go on and on. I mean, there were so many great players. So to me, that was great, And I probably, to be honest with you, I wasn't ready. Coaching-wise, I think I was ready. Okay? But with all the other things, managing the trainer, the general manager, the media, the publicity guys, it was really a difficult situation because I wasn't prepared for it. I mean, I had dealt with the media in New York, even as a small college coach, because there was a luncheon every weekend and you went into New York City and you talked to all the media and everything. And we had a great team. We were ranked number one in the state at CW Post, and we were really good. But I had no idea. The
names that you just mentioned is like mind-boggling when you talk about these are all the stories you hear about and the legends that you hear about. We never got a chance to even witness, shake these guys' hands. I remember the first time I saw Larry Bird, I was working out for the Indiana Pacers and he walked in. I was amazed that he looked like he was 7 feet tall, to be honest. That's what really struck me. I'm like, this dude is really big, man. I remember that seeing him. I remember seeing Danny Ainge, and I'm just surprised at how tall he was. I remember when we played Cincinnati and we see Oscar Robertson sitting
on the side. Yeah. That was cool.
And just bringing his presence, and you coached against these guys, competed against these guys for so many years. That's crazy, man.
I mean, you gotta. The thing about coaching, it's the same thing as playing. You got to know what you can do.
Right.
And you got to stick to what you can do. and then you have to try to get better in the areas that you're deficient in or that you're not as good in. In coaching, you have to decide what your philosophy is, how you want to coach, and I think you can't compromise. When you can compromise off the court, like if you're talking to Bob Lanier,
Right.
you've got to talk to Bob Lanier off the court, try to explain to him what you're trying to do, and ask him to follow through on the court. Now, if he's not a good leader, you're really in deep stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a difficult thing because your best player really has to be on board with you. And he has to be willing, like, you see Popovich, how successful he is.
Mm-hmm.
You see Spoelstra, what he's doing now. You
Yeah.
see Doc Rivers, what he's doing. These guys, they know how to manage players. They know how to manage people. They know how to develop trust in the player and where the player can have trust in them. And yet they have to be disciplinarians because they have to be demanding.
So do you think at that level, more of the challenge is managing the players than actually the philosophies on a game-to-game basis? Do you think it's more of trying to manage these extreme talents at that level is more of a challenge than actually coaching?
Oh, no. I think that's a great question. I'm using the term managing, but it's personal relationships. It's getting the player to understand what you want and trying to get him to buy into it and do it. And it isn't just the 2 hours that you practice.
Right.
It's off the court. It's finding out what he's interested in, what his family's like. You've got to take an interest in the guy. You can't, you can't be on an ego trip. As a coach, if your ego is bigger than the players, I don't think you have a shot. I really don't think you have a shot. But you have to have a philosophy, and you have to start off. I don't know if you say it's a disciplinarian, but you have to stick to your guns. Mm-hmm. Because it's like going into a classroom, and if you don't have any discipline in the classroom in the first couple of weeks,
you ain't gonna get it.
You try to do it later on, you got no shot.
Yeah,
you have no shot. Yes. And you've got to have assistants that are loyal and trustworthy and will buy in to what you're doing. And they have to understand that you're going to help them succeed, help them move forward. But it's a big family, and you've got to develop that family, I think, that family relationship. Because if the players don't make each other better, you're not going to win. You have no chance. They have to play together. And, Krzyzewski talks about having a fist and the 5 fingers and the 4 fingers and the thumb working together. Well, that's what it is. And now you have to have a bench. Yeah. Because if a guy gets hurt, or a guy gets in foul trouble, or a guy's not playing very well, you've got to have somebody that can come in and help him out. It's like when I watched the Celtics and the Raptors last night. Yeah. Both of those coaches did a terrific job. Now, I'm watching it, and Kemba's really struggling. And he struggled the game before. And Brad Stevens stuck with him. Stuck with him because he's one of his major players. The other players understood it. And he came through at the end. And you've got to know what a guy has. Like Marcus Smart.
Yeah, I was just going to say, he's a guy he's the glue to that team, man. He really is the glue that keeps everything. He's the steady force on that team. Offensively, especially defensively. That block that he had last night was ridiculous.
That was impressive for sure.
Andrew, hey, how about when he picks up the charge? He's a junkyard dog. If you don't have a junkyard dog on your team, you're in trouble. I mean, look at the Clippers.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about the little kid?
Who, Pat?
Right? And what about Rondo?
Ron,
Rondo's the same way.
I made a comment the other day on social media, and I felt good that Rondo is playing the way he's playing, because there's not a lot of pure point guards, and that style of point guard is kind of being overlooked in today's game. And to see him still have the impact that he can at this stage of his career shows that the game really hasn't changed that much. They just drifted to a different style, you know. And and just the fact that he can still manage a game and control the game the way he does is just unbelievable to me, you know.
Well, the coach has to understand what the guy's qualities are,
right?
How he interacts with the other teammates, and he's got to show confidence in him. You know, and he's got to recognize what this guy can do, and that's a coach's job. I mean, listen, I've coached, and there are guys that maybe was sick in college. I can think of a guy that was 6'3", was a great player in high school, played for Mater Christi in New York high school. Played for Malloy. I'm sorry, a kid named Bob Spencer. He was 6'3", and he was a power forward in high school. And I tried to make him a 2-guard. And it was a disservice to this kid, because he could have scored. He could score with anybody as a 3 or a 4, and I wanted to change it. And I made a mistake. And as a coach, you have to learn, you know, if there's certain guys that you coach and you try to put them in put a square peg into a round hole, you know, that's doing a kid a disservice, and you have to understand that. And that's part of what these great coaches do. I mean, Nick Nurse did a terrific job.
Nick Nurse is amazing, man. And his assistant coach is Nate Yorkin. That was actually my Austin too. Did you?
He was my head coach in the G League, the Iowa Energy.
Nate Yorkin. Nate Yorkin is the assistant coach for the Toronto Raptors now.
How about Griffin? Griffin's was a great player. I mean, this kid was the scourge of the CBA. And I mean, he was really a good player. And Adrian Griffin just kept working and working and working. He's going to be a head coach.
Well, my question is, why isn't Bob McAdoo a head coach?
I don't know. I don't know why, if Mac wanted to be a head coach. I really don't know that. Okay, I don't know that. But he was a great player, and he transitioned to be a great coach, assistant coach for Miami. Right. And hey, how about what's his name? Who's the coach of Michigan?
Juwan Howard.
Hey, all right. I had the honor of coaching him in Charlotte. I was an assistant. Juwan Howard might be the best player I've ever been around in the locker room. He was a leader. You know, he understood if you were having trouble with a guy, or if the head coach was having trouble with a guy, he would set the guy straight. He didn't necessarily have to do it in front of the coaches,
right? But
he would set the guy straight. He would explain what the guy should do, how the guy should act, what the team needed from him. And that's why Juwan, you know, he coached with Spoelstra.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was a great player, great college player.
Yeah.
Now he's coaching the University of Michigan, his alma mater.
Right.
He was a great NBA player as well. I mean, we're from Washington, D.C., so I grew up watching him with the Washington Bullets. You know,
he's very consistent.
You played with some pretty good players, right? In college, who'd you play with? Who was on your team?
We played with Roy Hibbert. We played with DeJuan Summers, Greg Monroe. We didn't get an opportunity. Jeff Green left the year that we came. He would have been a senior when we were freshmen.
Right.
We played with. I'm trying to.
Was Otto Porter on that team?
Otto came after us. He came right after us.
Nah,
Coach Iverson. I was an assistant in Philly with Allen.
Yeah, I was going to get to that. That's my all-time favorite player.
But don't do what he does off the court. He could have been better.
Yeah.
He really could have been better if he, he's one of the brightest guys I've ever coached. Okay, he's one of the brightest guys as a player I've ever been around. He's an incredible talent. He can play offense. He can play defense. He takes the challenge. He's not afraid of anybody. He's like, if you touch him, he's like a piece of steel.
Right.
But if he had dedicated himself to being as great as he could possibly be, he would be the greatest all-time player.
Really?
He would be. Here's what great players do. And Allen, and I'm not disputing that Allen didn't do this, okay? But if you're a coach and you've got 12 players or 15 players, and you tell, for instance, you tell Tim Duncan, Tim, I want you to work on this move on the post down the other end. And you send him down the other end with an assistant or whatever. And then you're working with the other guys. And you turn around and Tim Duncan is doing what you said. Now you know you're a player. Because other guys might be bussing around and just jacking it up and doing whatever they want. But that's the difference. That's the difference. That's the difference in great players.
I'm very glad that you said, sorry to cut you off. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you can cut me off all you want because I'll talk incessantly.
I'm very glad, and it's good to hear, and it's refreshing to hear, because I always believed to myself that if Allen Iverson wanted to, and I believe this, if he wanted to really focus on his craft, like say Kobe Bryant, like Michael Jordan, like these guys, there's nobody better than him. I don't think there was at any aspect of the game, defensively, often he was supreme athlete. He quickness. His most underrated attribute to me was his passing. I don't think people give him credit enough for how well he passed the ball because he could score so well. But I always thought that he averaged 30 points, but he still averaged 7 assists. You know what I'm saying? And it was natural that his assists came about. So for me, and especially for most of our viewers in Georgetown community, and I'm sure they love to hear that.
No, he was. Hey, because there's no doubt about it. He would have been the greatest. I mean, I know the thing about practice, who needs practice? But you need practice because you got to play with the other guys.
Right.
You have to play with the 4 other guys that are on the court with you, and they have to know what you're going to do. To Allen's credit, and to my brother's credit, because Larry was the coach of the Sixers, the players that Larry got around Allen all understood how good Allen was, how they could complement Allen, how they could help Allen. Now you're talking about Eric Snow, Aaron McKee, Theo Ralph, George Lynch. Yeah. They all understood what he could do. Hey, Kevin Ollie. Kevin Ollie was on that team. Andrew Lang. There's so many guys on that team, but they understood what Allen could do, and they tried to complement it. Yeah, how much better would they have been? We would have won the NBA championship. I honestly believe this. When we lost to the Lakers in 2001 in the finals, if Allen had practiced that whole year. You know what I mean? But hey, practice was at 10 o'clock. Allen was coming in at 6 o'clock. I mean, he was coming
So,
he was coming home at 6 o'clock. He wasn't ready to practice at 10 o'clock. That was the only difficulty.
and I always wondered, like, if Allen was that, would that taken away from himself? Because I feel like some players need to be like that. I feel like some players need to be express themselves off the court. They need to hang out, and they won't have the same mental capacity. They won't have the same focus on the court. I think that's part of what made him special. Now, I don't know, if you do it the right way, yeah, obviously odds are that he would have turned out a better player. But I don't know if the same feel, you get the same energy from him if he did the right thing all the time,
Well, wait, players don't have to do the right thing all the time, but they got to do the right thing most of the time. And the thing and I understand. Okay, if a guy comes in at 6 in the morning, maybe it's better if he came in at 2 in the morning, so he gets some rest. And be able to come to practice and work in conjunction with the other players. Hey, when Allen scrimmaged, he incredible with the other players. When he was at practice, incredible. But there were some things that he didn't want to do and he didn't like to do, but they're necessary. He's the best player on the team. They've got to follow him. And he's got to set an example on the court. Okay, off the court he doesn't have to, but he's got to be ready to play. And they've got to know that he's ready to play all the time. But you can burn the candle at both ends. But there is time to do it, and you said time not to do it.
Right. And I saw you spoke about how you said Juwan Howard was the perfect locker room guy. He was the perfect locker room guy.
Say that again?
You spoke on how Juwan Howard was the perfect locker room guy and how
as well as a great player.
Yeah. And he commanded a lot of respect. He was really already kind of a coach, and he kind of held his players to a certain standard. Now, Allen, how did guys perceive Allen, his teammates, in terms of when he did come in at 10 o'clock practice after being out at 6 a.m.? How did his teammates and his, the people that would go to the games with him, how did they react to those situations?
Well, I think to an extent, and they never said this, but I think to an extent it disappointed them that he wasn't there at the beginning of practice, or he wasn't committed to practicing as hard as they did. But that they tolerated it, they understood it. They knew that he was a special kind of individual, so they understood that. But I do think it impacted him. I think when you've got to do it every night after night in the playoffs, you can't have 44 one night and then the next night not be the same way. You're in the finals of the playoffs. You got to be ready to do it every night. And when he's not ready to do it, maybe not everybody is the same. Not everybody would tolerate Allen, and some guys did and some guys didn't. Okay, but eventually what happened was that they became jealous. Some of them became jealous, and every one of them made money, got great contracts because of how great Allen was and how they interacted with him. But if at the time, if Allen got special privileges, let's say his agent, manager, buddy flew with the team, and this guy wanted his guy to fly with the team, and this guy wanted his guy to fly with the team, and then it becomes a difficult situation. Hey, we had Mutombo, babe. Mutombo was
I was going to say.
Hey, he played at Georgetown, didn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm kidding.
Absolutely.
Hey, Deke is one of the finest human beings in the world. He's so darn. Not only is he a humanitarian and a great person and a great father, My grandson plays with his son at Lovett High School in Vinings, Georgia, right
We're,
outside.
we were sad that we weren't able to get Ryan Mutombo at Georgetown, man.
What?
That hurt us.
Very disappointing.
We were very upset that we couldn't get Ryan to come to Georgetown, man. That would have been a major gift because I feel like he's gonna be a special player as well.
I don't know where he's going to go. Everybody
He's
wants.
going to
I think Ryan should go to Georgetown.
He committed to Tennessee.
Yeah.
He committed to Tennessee.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I did not know. He committed to Tennessee.
Yeah.
I'm sure that
Yeah.
Deke is disappointed. I'm sure he's disappointed. Okay.
Yeah.
But Deke is one of the finest human beings ever. And here's a guy that if you told Deke to go to the other end and shoot 10 jump shots from the corner or make 10 in a row, he'd go down there and do it. You didn't even have to look.
Right.
You didn't have to look. Those are the kinds. I mean, if you told Allen to go down the other end and work on something, he'd work on something.
Right.
If you told Allen if he's playing a guy and a guy's dribbling the ball and the guy's dribbling, you're dribbling, Chris, or Andrew, you're dribbling to your left. And most guys keep you in front and they try to steal the ball with their right hand, right? But if you told Allen, you get a step, like a half a step to his left side and slip your hand through and try to step through and push the ball. And then you get a layup off of that. But that's the way you steal it because you get your body in the way and the ref's not going to call you for slapping out.
Right.
Well, we said that to Allen one day. 2 weeks later, in a ball game, big ball game, Allen does it. Steals the ball, goes in for a layup.
Right. You know who's a master of that?
He looks at the bench, winks, and just keeps playing.
You know who I've realized is a master of doing that is Rajon Rondo. He mastered that.
Yep. But how many guys do it? You can tell a lot of guys, as a coach or as a workout guy or whatever,
Right.
assistant coach, or head coach, you can tell the guy that this will help you.
Right.
How many of them do it? You can tell a guy to step up and make yourself smaller to get over the pick on a pick and roll. How many guys do it?
Right.
How many guys do it?
Right.
You can tell a guy, if a guy read picks, you want to trap him with the big guy. How many big guys do it?
Yeah, that kills me.
That's the thing. You tell a guy, in Detroit, we had a guy named Eldon Campbell when we won the championship.
Yeah.
Very good player from Clemson, right? Played for the Lakers too. He was on the low end of his career, the back end of his career.
Right.
On a pick and roll, he'd be playing the guy setting the screen, but before the guy set the screen, he'd jump out on the ball handler. That was his thing. And he created a turnover just like that. You can tell guys 10 different ways to play a pick and roll. This is one of the things we want the big to do. Right. But not all of them do it.
That Detroit Pistons team was amazing, man. I'm a big Chauncey Billups fan, Rip Hamilton, the Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed, Ben Wallace, and then the bench was, I think, was what really put that team over the hump to get Carlos Williamson, Mike James, Lindsey Hunter. Mehmet Okur was on that team. That was a great bench mob because they came in and the energy stayed at the same level. Maybe it might have went up, to be honest, because of the intensity they played defensively. I'm sure for you and your brother, that was a joy to coach that team because they seemed like they bought into the philosophy and the style that your brother as a head coach really embodied.
No, without a question of a doubt. Every one of those guys was a great guy. Every one of those guys sacrificed for the team. Every one of those guys understood his role. Every one of those guys tried to play both ends of the court.
Right.
and they put their egos in their back pocket,
Right.
and they assembled into one team. I mean, Ben Wallace did what he did best. Chauncey did what he did best. Rip did. Tayshaun. I mean, and to me, I was in Portland with Rasheed, and in Portland, the community did not understand Rasheed. Rasheed, as proud as Allen is, Rasheed is the same way. Rasheed, if you try to take advantage of Rasheed, or somebody try to take advantage of you, Rasheed would step up. But when we got him in Detroit, he was the difference.
He was. He came halfway through the season, kind of three quarters through the season, right?
Left from the
halfway. No, it was in I think it was early February.
Okay.
Okay, I think it was early February. But Rasheed, he brought us together. He because he talks incessantly in defense.
Right.
He'd guard Garnett. He'd guard Duncan. It didn't matter who he played against. He would guard everybody, but he would talk to everybody.
Right.
And he was a vocal voice. He didn't want to be the number one guy. He didn't care if he was number one, number two, number three. He just wanted to win. And he was a great rebounder, great shot blocker. He could score the ball, but he was an outstanding defender and an outstanding teammate. I remember when we were in Portland, Scottie Pippen said, Rasheed is the best teammate I've ever played with. Kind of interesting, huh? Yeah, teammate. He didn't say player, said best teammate.
And that's interesting because something I hear you say is that Portland, I guess as a city and a community, as a culture, didn't understand him and what what he was about. I think that happens. People underestimate how important that is to the success of a team, to the success of an individual. And I think that when Rasheed finally found the nucleus that he can gel with, everything came together. And in Portland, he was the man. He was the go-to guy in Portland. He was the one that, the ball was going into him to win the games. The ball, everything was running through him, but he really became himself, and his aura and his imprint on the game really became a staple of that team when he went to Detroit because of the community. I think they understood him. They understood his energy. They understood his passion for wanting to win. And Detroit as a city, I think, represents that as well.
Well, there are two things, and I'm going to contradict you a little bit. Hey, he played with some great players in Portland.
Oh, yeah.
Wait,
yeah.
He played with some great players. The difference in Portland and Detroit was management,
right,
and the coaching staff. And in Detroit, we understood Rasheed, we supported Rasheed, and if Rasheed had to be called out, then he would be called out in the correct way, but he would be supported. Okay, Rasheed never got a technical, in my opinion, that he was not reacting to somebody or something that was wrong. Now, officials aren't infallible, but they do make mistakes. And Rasheed he's a spoiled sport. Right? He wants to win, but it's a spoiled sport. But he's got to control his emotions as best he can. And the team has to support him. I'm not talking about his teammates. I'm talking about the management, the coaching staff. They can't, put their head in the sand and criticize Rasheed and not stand up for him. Hey, I was in, this is a crazy story. Everybody knows who Tim Donaghy is, right? The referee, okay? That was convicted of gambling and throwing games.
Right.
Well, he called 2 technicals on Rasheed in a game. And after the game, we were in the loading dock where the players' cars were. And at that time, the referees' cars were right there too. And Donaghy's working out. And I was there. And Donaghy's working out, and Rashid said something to him. Hey, man, why did you call those fouls? Call those technicals. Those were ridiculous. And Donaghy said something to him, and Rashid went after Donaghy. No fight or anything, okay? That was one of the games Donaghy threw.
What?
That was one of the games he threw.
Wow.
And
Wow.
Rashid, because at the time, everybody criticized Rashid.
Right.
They didn't know that he threw the game at that time, but they found out later on that he threw that game. But, you know, you got to support Rashid.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to understand why he erupted. He erupted for that reason.
Right.
But he's a great teammate. He took it upon himself. Sometimes, you know, you get a technical on purpose to rile up your team and to get them to play, right? A coach will do that. Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of Rashid would stand up for anybody.
Yeah.
Man,
this is
he's
coach.
a stand-up guy. He's a stand-up guy.
Just
Very misunderstood
Right.
player, but he's a stand-up guy, and I'm glad he's the high school coach now.
Oh, he is? Where is he coaching?
He's a high school coach in Durham, North Carolina. I think he's coaching Jordan High School. Isn't that right, Andrew? Austin, rather?
I think so. Yeah, he is coaching. Yeah, he is.
He's the head. Hey, he should be an NBA assistant, if not an NBA head coach, after being an assistant. Because you ask anybody, when he was an assistant, he helped out the Celtics, he helped out the Knicks. He's a great assistant.
Yeah.
He really understands the game, you know. But he's straightforward. There's no BS.
Right.
That's who Rashid is. What you see is what you get.
Right.
You know?
What you had a question for him?
Huh?
Yeah. A second. I just wanted to, you know, just give us, you know, that experience of that Western Conference Finals with Portland against the Lakers. Can you just go into depth of the experience that year in the Western Conference Finals against them, and you know where you guys were at mentally, where you coaches were at mentally in that finals? You know, just give us, you know, that experience. You know.
Oh no! Wait, it was terrific. When we were all together, hey, we made a mistake in the second game. We won the first game there, right?
Yeah.
We made a mistake at the end of the second game, a defensive mistake. We did what we shouldn't have done, and that's why we lost the game. It was a pick-and-roll situation. We were supposed to stay with Kobe, and we didn't. We stayed with Shaq, and Kobe went off. And it was almost, hey, it was our mistake. I mean, we just didn't execute the way we were supposed to execute. And then that might have been a different thing. You know, it might have turned out differently. We went down 4-1, right?
Right.
Okay. But it helped us as a coaching staff because some of us were still together in Detroit. Okay. We knew we were going to beat the Lakers. There's no doubt. All players knew, and we made a mistake in the second game there. I think it was the second game there. Might have been the first. Same kind of defensive mistake.
Yeah.
Second game in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
But we knew coming back that the players knew they're going to sweep them. I mean, they knew they were going to sweep them. It's the same thing. We played Indiana in the playoffs, right? Mm-hmm. With Artest.
Yeah.
And Artest was trying to bogart Tayshaun.
Right.
He was trying to bogart Rip, and Rip said, "Don't worry about it. I got it." And he got Artest riled up. and while Artest fouled him a couple of times, the game was over.
I used to love those series. That series you guys had against the New Jersey Nets. You guys had some serious battles against New Jersey.
Yeah.
My goodness. I was one of the biggest Jason Kidd fans, and it was like battle of heavyweights in that series. It happened. That y'all met in the playoffs a couple years, if I'm not mistaken.
No, we were not there. Oh, Rick Carlisle was coaching Detroit, and they lost twice in the I think it was the conference finals.
Yeah, I think it was the conference finals
against New Jersey.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But then we got there, and hey, you got to break the schneid. You got to. But that game, we lost the triple overtime game.
Yeah.
Once he had tied the score.
Yeah.
But they played Jason Kidd, Scalabrini, all those guys. Our guys fouled out, and Chauncey was just about the only one left in the game. Our guys all fouled out. And they played major minutes.
I want to say Jason Kidd might have played 60 minutes that game.
Who?
Jason Kidd might have played 60 minutes.
Well, he played a lot. I don't know exactly the number, but and now it's 3-3, and we're coming back to Jersey,
right? Because
we were not the conference champions. We're coming back to Jersey to play. They go up 12-2, and Mike Woodson elbows my brother and says, "You better call a timeout."
Right. And
Larry called a timeout, and the game was over. We came out on the court, and the game was over. I mean, we just kicked their butt. Their butt. They just ran out of gas.
Right.
And we had to get over the hump because for 2 years before Larry got there and before our coaching staff got there, they had kicked Detroit's butt.
Right.
And I think that's why they hired Larry.
Right.
That's why they hired Larry. And that's what happened,
So, Coach, you have been able to coach in so many different levels, so many different leagues, you've been able to be around so many different players. What do you think is the biggest difference between the NBA game and the European game? We talked briefly on the phone before this interview, and you expressed to me how much you love coaching in Spain, and just what was so compelling about you coaching in Spain? Why did you love that journey so much?
Well, coaching in Puerto Rico prepared me to coach in Spain. Okay, that really prepared me because in Puerto Rico, I'm just going to digress for a second.
Mm-hmm.
In Puerto Rico, at the time I was coaching in Puerto Rico, in the regular season was 68 days. You played 33 games in 68 days.
Yeah, I played in Puerto Rico.
Played one day, you practiced the next. Okay? Yeah. The 3 days off, the 2 days off were for the All-Star game. And then you went to the playoffs. And the playoffs were 3 out of 5, 4 out of 7, 4 out of 7. And if you didn't qualify or if you tied for the 8th place, you played a 2 out of 3 and then a 3 out of 5. A 4 out of 7, 4 out of 7. Okay? But so and now I coached against, you ready for this? Gene Bartow, PJ Carlosimo, Jim Boeheim, Jimmy Lynam, Phil Jackson, Doug Moe, Jack McKinney, Paul Westhead, Tom Nasalki, Del Harris. These are the guys that coached in Puerto Rico.
They all coached in Puerto Rico?
Every one of those guys coached in Puerto Rico. The first American coach in Puerto Rico was Tex Winter.
Wow.
Tex Winter was the first guy. I'm telling you. Bob Weinauer.
Right.
These are all guys that coached there. Rolly, did I say Rolly? Rolly Massimino.
Yeah, Massimino coached it. No, I didn't know that. Dang.
Rolly Massimino was my teammate at Vermont, and succeeded me at Stony Brook when I went back to Post.
Wow.
And Rolly also coached. You know, he not only did he win an NCAA championship, I mean, he also he coached in Puerto Rico. I mean, incredible. It's incredible. Now, that prepared me for Europe. But the thing in Europe, and I'm a coach that really believed in practice. Okay? So in Puerto Rico, when I got there, my team wasn't used to practice. But they got used to it. Okay? But in Spain, you don't practice. At that time, right? I got there. You don't practice once a day. You practice twice a day.
Oh,
okay?
I'm aware. I'm doing
morning practice.
Yep.
Our morning practice. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. Correct me, please. The morning practice is more of a fundamental thing.
Yes.
Where big men, small men, and shooting. Okay.
Yes.
And you don't go against each other 5-on-5, or you don't. We didn't do 2-on-2 or 3-on-3 or anything like that. We had the big men on one end, the small men on the other. We come together and did a pick and roll or drive and kick, or talk a little bit about defense. And then in the evening or late afternoon, you practice for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And you're only in Europe, and then you really get after it, okay? And then in Europe, at that time, you only played once a week.
Right.
Or maybe twice a week. If you weren't in European competition.
Yeah.
And the top 8 teams are in European competition. Okay. Right. So American players or imported players hated. They only played 2 games, right? They hate it. So it's incredible. So you, as a coach, you got to set up scrimmages during the week. I was fortunate. My first year we played in the Korak Cup. So we played the 2 games in Spain, but we also had another game during the week. And I had great players. I mean, I had great Americans. I had Reggie Johnson, who played at Tennessee, played in the NBA with the Sixers, and Lamone Lampley, who was a terrific player. Okay? But I had that. And then I went, and that's good. Then I went to Baskonia, Talgris, okay?
Talgris, yeah.
And they were not in the playoffs.
Mm.
So they only played twice a week. And I had really good players. I had a kid named Ramon Rivas, okay? I had Chicho Sabilio, a great Dominican player that played in Spain. I had Joel Arlacus, who became a very good player. Pepe Lasso, Pablo Lasso, the coach of Real Madrid.
I was going to say, that's the head coach
He was
of Madrid.
my point guard.
Oh, yeah?
He was my point guard. I mean, we really had a terrific team. I really had a great team.
Right.
But the first year, we didn't have, we only played in the Spanish league. So we didn't have that game where you travel one day and play the next game in the Korak Cup or in European competition. So the owner, who was still the owner, who was one of the smartest guys, Josian Carajeta, one of the smartest guys that have ever been around, he decided that we were going to travel throughout the Basque Country and put on a clinic at least once a week in the small towns. The small towns did not have basketball courts. They had frontons for highlight, and it's cement, and that's the floor. And so I said, okay, we'll do it, but we'll put on a practice where we'll scrimmage, but we're not going to really bang each other and go hard because of the floor. And then you got to promise that if we travel by bus to these small towns, that you've got to give the players a meal, a good meal, after we do that. So he set up things where we stopped at bodegas and wineries. And after the game, they put a spread out
right.
at a winery, and each kid would get 2 bottles of wine to bring back.
Oh, that's
And
beautiful.
that kept the Americans, the Spanish players understand this,
Right.
they deal with it. But the foreigners, if you're from the United States, I'm not talking about if you're from Europe because they're used to that crap too.
Right.
But the American players dealt with it. I had a kid named Scott Roth who was a really good player and became an assistant in the NBA, but he hated it. He absolutely hated it, but he bought in because that's what we did. And and it gives the players a chance to bond and they screw around in the game, at the bodega and at the
Right.
Fontan in front of fans. So,
Yeah, I understand that completely because I'm overseas right now, and we are having two-a-days at least 3 times a week, every week.
that's right.
And
You lift weight. We lifted weights the other mornings
yeah,
when we didn't have a practice, which is like a shoot around.
right.
We lifted weights as a
Yeah,
team.
that's our schedule right now. We have morning lifting and shooting, which is shooting. It depends. It can either be just straight shooting or it's individual work, guards and bigs. It's still the same format. This year I'm not playing. I'm only playing 2 games a week. I'm not playing. Last year we were in Basketball Champions League and we did well, but due to COVID and everything that happened, everything is just haywire this year. So you kind of got to get in where you fit in. And so I'm back to 1 game a week, and we working.
Trouble.
Yeah, we're working.
That's where I'd have to understand that you might be out all night or something, right?
Yeah.
Like you said about Allen, right?
Right.
But
right.
that's what we would try to do. We would try to do something to break the monotony of not playing 1 or 2 games a week, not only playing 1 or 2 games a week. And it's tough.
Right.
But hey, you signed on for that, right? You signed on for that. And you have to understand it. And yeah, grudgingly accept it. Because that's the system. But honestly, the fundamental workout in the mornings really helps a player develop and get better.
Right.
It really does. The thing is that you can't hold it for 2 hours. You got to hold it for 45 minutes or an hour and 15 minutes. And then you got to make it interesting. Maybe even have shooting games or whatever. But you have to make it interesting. But it does help the player. Difference in European basketball and NBA basketball, I really believe fundamentals as a team are better in Europe.
I agree. I 100% agree.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Because the player, and you guys, most of you aren't spoiled. You're working for a living and you understand that this is a way to make a living. And the majority of the players accept this and understand it. They get bored, but every once in a while, maybe the coach have a volleyball game in the morning, or a soccer game, or a dodgeball game, or whatever, just to break up the monotony. That's what you have to do.
I'm not gonna lie, I hate those days because they turn into soccer days and everybody in Europe knows how to play soccer and I have no idea what I'm doing on a soccer field. So I'm out there just running around like a chicken with my head cut off, just trying to stay out the way.
You gotta laugh your way through it. That's what you gotta do.
Man, everybody, from the managers to the coaches, everybody's cracking up laughing at me because I'm tripping over the ball, about to roll my ankle.
Well, that's a different story, I know. But we used to lift weights, our guys in Baskonia, in Talgres, okay?
Right.
Vitoria, which is the best city I've ever been in my life in Spain, is Vitoria. 300,000 people, the best fans in the world, and great restaurants, great food. It's just unbelievable situation. But when the first couple of years, we lifted weights in a gym away from the arena downtown. okay? And
Okay.
it was a regular gym. But I never got there with the players. Our strength coach was with them, and the players were there. So I didn't check on how many you lift in here, what are you doing there. When I used to walk in, the players used to clap twice, and then they get right into it and do the right thing. Okay? And that's the thing, you got to stay away. My third year there, they decided they weren't going to spend the money to let the players go to the downtown gym, and they put it in the arena. That means the players had to come to the arena every morning,
Right.
because we didn't lift on the same days we shot. Okay, we alternated the days, and that's really tough, and that's really boring. So even if you're going to lift and you have to do it in the arena, the coaches got to get down.
Right.
The coaches can't be there monitoring how you lift, because if the coaches are there, then it becomes work for you guys. And then
the game doesn't become, it's not fun anymore, man. And I've had both. You had both, where the coaches will be in the locker and they're giving you that stern face, and you got to make sure you're doing every rep 150%. You know,
I'm telling you, that's the truth.
and it's like 9:30, 10 in the morning. You like, dang, I just had a coffee, and you know, come on, Chris, make sure you do all your reps. I'm like, it's not fun. You can't talk about, and the thing about it, what people don't understand is, as an American, and if you're a basketball fan, the NBA games come on 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, so if you're watching and you're watching these games, or even if you don't watch the games, you want to talk about the games when your teammates, when you get to the gym. And if the coach is there, none of that is happening. and that's part of the game that people don't understand, the dynamic of the European game. And that's a great point that you made, is that, you know, you can't, I believe as well, the head coach should not be there in the morning.
No, the coaches shouldn't be there. Yeah, really, the coaches shouldn't be there. Hey, let the coaches have their own meeting.
Right.
That's where they should meet. Forget that. But the other thing is, and I don't know if they're doing this now, in the NBA, when I first started in the NBA, there was never breakfast in the arena for the players.
Right.
Okay? Plus the fact, in Detroit, we didn't have a practice arena. We would practice in different places every day, in downtown Detroit or in the suburbs. But now in the NBA, and my last couple of years in the NBA, we had this. There are breakfasts. So the players come in early and they can eat breakfast, and they can rap about the game the night before or anything. Or you could, if they have that in Spain or in Europe, that would help things.
I agree.
Okay. Now, they also have lunch in the NBA. And, you know, even if you do it once or twice a week,
right,
in Europe, that would help the players. And that's not something I knew about, okay? Honestly, when I was coaching in Spain, we never had that, okay? Yeah. When I coached in Israel, it was really interesting. We practiced in a great arena downtown, where Maccabi plays now. That's where we practiced. As soon as practice was over, and my team was all Americans, I had one guy who was Jewish, and he was from the States.
You had one
Jewish
team,
each team had to have one national. And this is a European professional league. Most of the players were ex-NBA,
right,
or just graduated college, NBA draft choices that didn't make it, or ABA draft choices that didn't make it, or had played in the ABA. Every one of our kids, except for that one kid. Okay, but this is every team in the league. Every single team in the league had that. But right after practice, there were little umbrella stands outside. And the guys were going by Peter and you know, and they'd eat pita bread and whatever, falafel or whatever was there, and they would eat.
Right.
They'd run out for hummus, and they'd eat it right after that. And we all lived in a great place. We all
Yeah.
lived in a great place, but
I think
that's
well,
what-
Tel Aviv is a great
those
city.
are things. Those are things you have to provide. You know, you have to do. And then the CBA, when I coached in the CBA, players all lived in American players. Okay, the CBA was all American players, maybe one or two Puerto Rican players. But I had an owner that didn't want to pay money, and everybody on my team made the same amount of money, whether you were the best player or the worst player. They all lived in the same building. And we had 10 guys on the team. They all lived in the same building. And
I don't think people understand
Huh?
the some living conditions that you have if you're not in the NBA, you're a professional basketball player. I think people don't take that, you know, when you say that you're an overseas player and they say that you get a house and a car and all that stuff, you don't
depends
understand.
on the team, right, and the level,
Yeah,
right?
it depends on the team, depends on the country. It
Right.
depends on if you're in a 2-league team. It really depends. It really differs every single place that you go. Like, you know, some teams you'll be in a hotel. You know,
That's
you
right.
could be in a hotel for entire. You might not get a car. You might. It's very different for each team depending on the level and the budgets of teams. Everybody sees the NBA, and the NBA is, I mean, no matter what, you're staying in 5-star hotels everywhere you go. You get everything is kind of catered to you. That's not necessarily the how it goes in Europe, you know, and it's kind of like, you know, you got to only the strong survive in some cases.
Hey, Chris, it's different. It's a different life. I mean, in the NBA, you know, when I started out, when I was coaching the Pistons, I had one assistant. We didn't fly charter. We flew, you know, the same. Are you guys still on? I think I lost you.
Yeah,
I lost you.
I'm still here.
Oh, yeah, I got you now. But I don't know if I have Chris Austin.
Chris froze, I think. Hold on.
Okay. We don't have him. Gotta see if we can get him.
Might get him real quick. Hold on.
Okay, I got you and me. Chris, can you
Okay.
hear us now? Okay,
That's
one-
it.
all right, stop, because
That was a prime example of what I was saying. Overseas, the Wi-Fi goes out.
well, wait a second. When I was in the NBA as a head coach,
Right.
the first time, and as an assistant, we didn't fly charter. We had to leave the next morning. If we played the night before, we had to leave the next morning on the earliest flight out to make a game the next night.
Well, that's how the deal.
Yeah.
And we
That's
had
how
to
the
carry,
deal was.
wait, we had to carry our own luggage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you're doing now, right?
Yeah, that's what
Don't feel, hey, wait, don't feel like the Long Ranger. For real now. I mean, you know, I've been to Europe. I understand what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you're in a big time program and you're in the Euro League, yeah, you fly charter,
Right.
playing a game someplace else. But that's what it is. In the NBA, you don't even have to touch your luggage until you get to the hotel.
Uh-huh.
You go to the private airstrip or the private air terminal.
Right.
Somebody takes your luggage from your car,
Right.
puts it on a plane. You go through security. You wait for them to load up. You go on a plane. Your food is there. You're in a charter. You're sitting in first class seats. The team in the first cabin. The players in the middle cabin. The coaches in the middle cabin, and all the other guys in the back cabin.
Right.
Plus you guys and whatever. You get to the other airport, you land. The people that take the luggage off the plane, put it in a truck or on a bus. take it to the hotel, and you're on the bus. You don't touch your luggage unless you want to bring it up to your room right then and there,
Right.
and you go into your room. That's it.
Your luggage is right there in
Wait,
your room when you get there.
Yeah, you don't do anything. You don't have to do anything. I mean, it's a great way to travel, and they're always thinking about the health of the players, and the comfort of the players, so that the guys are going to be able to play the next night. Now, they're not checking to see if you go out.
No, they're not.
Most times you get to these, most times you get to these other cities. Everybody thinks the NBA. You play at 7:00, the game's over at 9:30. You're out of there at 10. And then they don't realize that you have to get on a plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now they've changed it, and they'll let you stay home. And then if you're not playing the next night, you leave at a reasonable time the next morning, and then you go. But nobody checks you after you get in. If you get in 2:00 in the morning, some of these guys, they wait till they get their luggage, and then they're out the door, and nobody's watching them or anything else.
Right.
Alan would love it. No, but I mean it's a different world.
It is.
But the thing is, you're still doing what you love to do.
Yeah, you are.
You're
I
not
got a
being
question.
spoiled. You're not being spoiled. You gotta accept it. What's the question?
So you said as you've been coaching forever, you've moved countless
I
times.
wish I was still coaching.
Really?
Yeah, I wish I was still coaching. I'm
Right.
healthy. I can
Right.
still coach. My
Right.
mind, I haven't lost my mind yet. I might seem like that sometimes.
Well, you know what? It's ironic because in 2016, and I just came across this. In 2016, I was asked, my father is Costa Rican, and I was asked to play on the Costa Rican national team in 2016.
Costa
and I heard,
Rica. Okay.
and I heard that you were potentially going to be assistant coach on that team. Potentially.
On the national team with Josh Erickson was the head coach.
Josh Erickson was the head
Oh, I
coach.
did go with him.
Oh, you did?
Go. But you
Okay.
didn't go.
I didn't go. I wish I would have.
Oh, I wish too, because we had a young point guard
Yeah.
who was a good player, but he didn't understand. He was too young. He didn't understand. And it was really, it was a difficult situation. The players were great. We had to practice. I want to say it was in Ecuador, right?
Yes, it was
It
in
was in
Ecuador.
Ecuador. And not all the players got their passports or visas in time. And we were practicing up in the mountains, and we didn't have all the players. And it was a tough situation. It was a tough situation. But the players were really good guys. But it was tough. Hey, Ione, he played for the he played for the
Ione is Mexican.
Bahamas. It was the Bahamas. Did he play? Was it the Bahamas? He was 16 years old, and he was in that tournament. The kid that playing for Phoenix from the
Who
university.
you talking about? Gustavo Ione?
Yes. He was 16 years old. He was in that tournament.
Okay.
We lost him again, I think.
No, he's
Chris
back.
still there?
He's back.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah.
Chris,
Oh,
he was in that tournament. I mean, hey, and the Dominican team was a great team.
Yeah.
And it was I'm trying to think. It was in Panama. We played in Panama.
Yeah.
And the Panamanian team was a terrific team.
Yeah.
And the team from Mexico and the team from Puerto Rico, I mean, they were really good. I knew all those guys. I mean, I knew that I had coached some of the guys that were coaching the Puerto Rican national team.
Wow.
I mean, but I'm telling you, in Costa Rica, they don't have a great program.
Right.
They really, in their league is not a really strong league.
Right.
But the players were terrific guys. I mean, they were just outmanned. It was just outmanned. And when we got to Panama, we couldn't really practice. It was very, very difficult.
So is it for you and all these coaching stops that you've been in, has it been as a your family, how is the family dynamic for you and your family being able to move and you constantly
Well,
moving? How has that been?
um, you know, when I was in Israel, um, I I had just gotten divorced.
Okay.
So but I was away from my two young kids. When I was in Puerto Rico, I had been divorced, but I got my kids for the 3 months during the summer. They were
Okay.
with me all the time. And when I was in Spain, I was married, but I didn't have kids. My kids weren't with me; they were married. And when I coached in a WBA, which was like the CBA but much better, um, my kids came and stayed with me. Um, it's difficult. I mean, it's difficult. It's more difficult. I don't know if you're married or Austin, if you're married.
Yeah, I'm married with 3 kids.
Are they with you?
They come with me every year.
Well, then that's much better, right?
Yeah, it
When
is.
you're by yourself, Austin.
I'm not married yet, but I have a kid on the way. So
Okay, all right. If you're with them, then at least you have your family.
Right.
But if you're an American by yourself overseas, without your children or without a girlfriend that's living with you,
Yeah,
it is really difficult.
it
Now you
is.
got so much free time. You don't know the language. You don't really know the customs. And the first year is a very, very difficult year.
Well, my first year overseas, I was in Turkey, and I was by myself, and that's when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis.
That was
So that was the year I was diagnosed with MS, multiple
right.
sclerosis.
Okay, I got it. Yeah.
So after that
Very
year,
difficult. What?
yeah, oh, extremely difficult. So after that year, it was always my part of my plan that wherever I was going, if I was going overseas, I'm taking my family with me. I'm not doing this no more, not by myself. I learned that early, first year. I'm not going
Were
through.
you married at that time? Your first year?
No, I wasn't married at that time. I
Did you have
wasn't married. I
a
was married
child?
here.
Did you have a child? Your first year, did
Huh?
you have a child?
yeah, did you have a child?
No, my child. I had a child after my first year. I had
Oh,
my child my
okay.
second year.
So that is, and on top of that, you were diagnosed with MS. That's a really difficult time. Who was there another American on the team with you?
Yeah, I had another American who was his name is David Dixon. He was my teammate. He actually married a Turkish woman, and he's been out here for the last 15 years. And
Okay.
that was my only lifeline that year. That was it. That
Okay.
was it.
Yeah.
You know. But other than that, it was extremely, extremely tough. You had one of those
I'm
coaches
sure.
that
I'm
was crazy. Hated rookies. One of those type coaches. So it was a really tough year for me. And after that, I decided I'm not doing this overseas thing no more. Not without like significant other at least.
Well, you made the right decision. I mean, that's what it has to be. And you have to get them to bring your wife over or your girlfriend over and pay for that, right?
And
And then they got to put you up in a reasonable place.
Yeah.
It's tough. It's not easy. I mean, I know that it's not easy. I mean, I was single when I was not married, but I had children. I was divorced when I went to Israel, and it was tough. It was tough, but I had an American team. We were staying in a nice place, and everybody in Israel, in Tel Aviv, everybody speaks English,
everybody.
and it wasn't as difficult as it is now.
Right.
I've been back there a number of times since then, but it's not as difficult as it is now. And when you talk about Portland, Scotty always said that Rashid was a victim of the community. And that's because the team really didn't support him in the right way. And that's my opinion. Okay. Because when I tell people from Portland, if I speak someplace and I tell people about Rasheed and how great a guy he was and what a great team he was and what a great player he was in person, they think I'm crazy. But you know what's going on in Portland now, right? Portland has the greatest fans in the world, but they're fair weather fans, okay? They're fair weather fans. They love their team because besides soccer now, it's the only major league team there.
Okay.
But you see what's going on in downtown Portland?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's chaos.
It's insane. Now my wife and I live outside of Portland, about 20 minutes. I've been downtown once with a friend of mine and to show me around and show me what, because his significant other, he takes her to work every day down there and then he comes back. But it's incredible. The destruction, the places boarded up, the restaurants that are closed, and they won't do anything. They won't do anything to help stop these protests. And the protests, they start out very peacefully, demonstrating their beliefs, what they believe in, and then all these other, the violent people, okay, the protesters, they stand behind them, then they start throwing things, but they're standing behind these peaceful protesters. And then they wait till 12, 1 o'clock at night, and they cause havoc and all sorts of violence. And it's just crazy. I mean, it's not solving the problem.
No, not at all.
The problem is that, I thought about this before. I once you told me we were going to do this thing. We're all different, but we're all the same. And we're all products of our environment. I mean, we're all products. I mean, I've experienced some anti-Semitism in my life, but I've never been stopped by a cop because of the color of my skin. Okay? I've never, so I don't know what that is. The fear of that. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. But if you're a good guy, you're my buddy. If you're not a good guy, you're not my buddy. But I don't know how I'd react as a cop if I felt my life was in danger. And I don't know how I feel as a Black person if a cop went after me and I thought my life was in danger.
Right.
That's something where you have to sit down. I'm fortunate because when I went to college, my fraternity, they pledged a couple of Black guys, okay, who were athletes and became my closest friends in the fraternity. And so they explained some things to me that I never experienced growing up, okay? Right. I once asked one of them, I said, Roy, I'm going downtown to get a haircut. Why don't you come with me? And you can get a haircut too. He said, Herb, I can't get a haircut downtown. This is Burlington, Vermont. He said, I can't go downtown. He said, I have to go to Winooski, the next town over, to Ethan Allen Air Force Base to get my haircut. I said, what? I had no idea. My senior year in college, two of us, two white guys, me and another guy, went to a motel outside of town and rented 5 rooms for a weekend, okay? Because they had a big weekend and we were all inviting our girlfriends up to stay for the weekend because it was a 4-day weekend. I was on a basketball trip and we didn't get back for a couple of days, right? And we didn't get back for the last 2 days. Roy, this guy I'm telling you, he went, his girlfriend flew in. He went to the motel and said, my name's Roy Williams. I have a reservation for 4 nights. The guy looked at him and said, you don't have a reservation. He said, what do you mean? We got 5 rooms. And he gave the names. You guys, no, you don't have it. And only 2 of the guys were black. The other 3 guys were white guys.
Mm.
So he just, what could he do? He left. And we stayed in different people's apartments. The 5 guys all stayed in different people's apartments. And there was a law passed that year in Vermont that there couldn't be discrimination in public housing.
Yeah. I mean,
now
it's hard to really understand.
I know it's difficult. I mean, so these are my friends, but it's not something that I really understand. I'm so fortunate, I think, because I coach black guys. I coach Puerto Ricans.
Right.
I coach Spanish guys.
Right.
And so it gave me a different perspective. But I still never experienced living in a community that was almost all black or all black.
Damn, my shit breaking.
And where you could experience police brutality. I mean, I have guys that I coached that became cops. I have a Puerto Rican guy that became an FBI guy. And he went through the academy in New York, right? The police academy.
Yeah.
And he said to me, Coach, half of the guys that go through the police academy are white guys from the suburbs,
right,
who want the power of being cops.
Right.
But they don't understand what goes on. He said, the best thing would be if black guys from the neighborhood or from the city
can patrol their own community.
Go through the academy.
Right.
And then when they graduate the academy, they go and police the black neighborhoods.
Yeah.
But that's not what happens. That's what happens. So it's a threatening situation. I mean, nobody understands. If you want to go into police academy in New York, you can't go in until you have 2 years of work experience. Okay? Outside, someplace else.
Right.
The only way you get in without a college education or without 2 years of college is if you've served in the Army.
Right.
Okay? So it's a difficult thing. And then when you go through the academy, whether you're black or white, you don't get paid. It's a 3-year program. You don't get paid. You don't get hospitalization or medical.
Nah.
You don't get credit for the college courses that you take that are given by community college professors. And then when you graduate and you become a policeman, you don't get credit for the 3 years that you went through as cadets in the academy. So how you get a living? You don't get paid.
And you know what's crazy? In Washington, D.C. right now, they are cutting the cadet program.
Yeah, well, they're doing that in New York too.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's really a situation where you're at a disadvantage across the board. You know, you're really at a disadvantage. The cadet program has been a savior for a lot of Black and minority people.
Oh, right. Oh, absolutely. Hey, it's a great career.
Yeah.
It really, think about it. It's a great career if you don't have a trade and you don't want to go to community college, but you want to do something of service to the community and you want to make something of your life.
Right.
And then at every turn they prohibit it. It doesn't make sense. And there's no diversity training every year. So look, there might be diversity training in the police department when you first become a cop, or if you went through the academy.
Yeah.
But they don't do it every year.
No.
We don't talk about what's going on currently in this country.
Right.
It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense.
At this point, I don't know what the answer is or the solution to this problem, because there's fear on both sides. You know, there's fear from the police, and there's obviously fear for a black man. Anytime that you're a black man and you get pulled over by a cop, or a cop comes to talk to you, there's an automatic stereotype and fear that's associated with that. So
On both ends, because they don't know if the guy in the car is carrying.
right, it's on both sides. So it's
But there's, they pull guys over for no reason at all. I mean, it's a bogus thing saying, "Oh, he looked like somebody that we're looking for."
Right.
I mean,
and also
that's an excuse after the fact.
I think a big contributor to things now is social media. I think the worst thing that happened is that now, as in social media, is being
No, you're right.
publicized.
You're back on. Oh, yeah, you're on. You're on now. Wait, stop.
On these, and you see, or getting abused.
Yeah, no.
Oh yeah, my thing's messing up.
Hey, social media gets worse the more public it becomes.
Yeah, and I disagree with a lot of people, and I disagree with a lot of people that keep showing graphically what's happening to these black people and how they're getting abused. I think that only gives certain people, these evil people, more ammunition to do these type of things. I don't agree with us showing each other and black people showing each other being hurt and being abused. I don't think that's right. I think that's just another way of crippling us and showing us in a negative light. I think it's like if a police officer was abused or if a police officer was attacked, he wouldn't be shown all over the internet. He wouldn't be shown and being abused and all that stuff. So I think, why would we show us, even if we know the situation in America, we know what it is. We know the history of police brutality and systemic oppression and systemic racism. To fuel that situation doesn't do anything for us, I don't think.
Where did you grow up, Chris?
I grew up in Maryland and Washington, D.C., the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area.
Okay. Where did you grow up, Austin?
Same.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, we all got to experience, we don't experience what the other guy is experiencing. So we don't know where he's coming from and what caused his reaction, either on either end. And we don't spend any time getting to know one another.
No.
Okay? We don't. Hey, my son is married to a black lady. Okay? So he's experienced difficulty. Okay? But he's got 3 kids.
Right.
Who are bright as hell.
Right.
And all 3 are from interracial marriages.
Right.
From an interracial marriage, I'm sorry. So they're experiencing other things.
Right.
And they're in a nice suburb, in a nice city where there are a lot of black people, there are a lot of interracial couples, but they still experience difficulty. One of them graduated from Princeton, the other one's at Stanford, both basketball players, both girls. And the boy's going to a senior year in high school.
Damn.
He's a basketball player. But, they experience things that I've never experienced. There's no way I can experience that.
Oh, man.
But I'm fortunate because I can communicate and I can learn some things. Right. And if I were coaching now, I would have the opportunity to understand some of this stuff by sitting down with the players and discussing this. We never had these discussions. I mean, I coach guys. Reggie Johnson lived right next to me. And so I used to drive to games with him and spend time with him all the time. But we very rarely delved into the prejudice that he'd experienced growing up. Okay, I can see it I can do it with my son because who he's married to and what he went through, and I can what his kids go through, and his kids identify as black. His
Right.
kids don't identify as white. Okay,
Right.
so I have the advantage of doing that. I wish when I was coaching, I had that advantage. I don't, but now these coaches now have the opportunity to find out what this is all about, and maybe they can convey it to other people. I don't know.
Right.
But it's,
No, I agree.
it's a tough thing. I mean,
I agree. I
how
think
do
we
the
all have a duty.
Turkish people handle it with you?
Turkish people, they listen. From everything that I encounter with Turkish people, they're very hospitable.
Right.
They're very hospitable. They're very nice people. They more have issues internally.
Yeah, I know. Right. A different.
It's a different element over here. I don't necessarily feel any type of
Prejudice.
animosity or anything because of the color of my skin. I don't feel that.
Okay.
Half the people are here the same color as me anyway.
Yeah, in Spain, the players, there is no prejudice. Okay, they have. It's like Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia. All those different areas have problems with each other. In Spain, the people in Barcelona are Catalan.
Right.
The people in Vitoria are Basque. So everything's different.
On that, last year we played. We flew to Manresa. We flew to Barcelona.
Yeah.
We flew to Barcelona to play against Manresa, which is about 45 minutes.
Which is right outside of Barcelona.
Right. When we flew into the airport, because Catalan is trying to establish their independence. They're trying to understand. They're trying to establish their independence.
Catalan. You're right.
Right.
Catalonia. It's called Catalonia. Okay.
Catalonia. Okay. Let me get that right. So when we're arriving into the airport, is a big riot. I'm talking about the police and just the locals are fighting and going crazy and all this stuff. They almost had to cancel the game. Like that was our flight into Barcelona. It was crazy.
I know.
So it's all different type of elements everywhere. There's all different types of struggles everywhere. That's what people have to realize. And us as Americans, in America, you just think that everything is focused on America. We're blinded to what's going on outside of the country.
Yeah.
And
but it's like the North and the South. And I'm not talking about the Civil War. I'm saying growing up in Alabama is different than growing up in Massachusetts.
Of course.
And New York or Washington, D.C. I mean, it's different. I mean, if you grow up in Montana, you're going to understand what goes on in Washington, D.C. It's kind of difficult. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But this has been great. I really enjoyed it. Any other questions?
I have one more question.
That's not enough.
Said you coached in Puerto Rico. You coached against Paul Westhead. Did he still have that same philosophy or system that he was running when he was at Loyola Marymount and
Paul Westhead?
Paul Westhead, yeah. Did he have that same philosophy at that time, or?
No, he didn't have that. It's interesting. No, he was coaching LaSalle University at the time. Okay. And no, he didn't have that. I don't know. And when he coached in the NBA, he didn't have that philosophy. Okay, when he was with the Lakers. And so no, I don't know when or how he developed the philosophy. I'm trying to think. He coached against Rowley when Rowley was at Villanova. He coached against Jack McKinney. Jack McKinney was at St. Joseph's.
Right.
And none of them played that way. But the first time I ever coached with a shot clock was in Puerto Rico. Okay. In high school down there, they have a shot clock. In Japan, they have the shot clock. In Israel, they have the shot clock. But, you know, you don't have that in high school here. Maybe there are 10 states in the country that play with the shot clock.
Right.
And it's the most ridiculous thing in the world. But no, but these guys, Doug Moe was the closest thing to that, to what Westhead did. Because Doug Moe's offense was a free-flowing offense. And they played defense, but they really wanted to score.
Right.
And they coached great players, and you know, they were great doing that in the NBA. But I really don't know where Paul got that. That's a terrific question. You know, I know Sonny Allen, who once coached SMU, he was that kind of a coach. Where they ran the ball, it was fast break. John McClendon, great black coach, was a run and gun top coach, but a great coach. Nolan Richardson, you know, was the press.
Yeah.
I mean, they jumped all over you.
Yeah.
And but I really, that's a great question. I don't know where Paul got that. I really don't.
Yeah. I was thinking about that one once you said you coached against them. So,
did you play against them in coaching?
No, I didn't. I didn't play against them. No. I think the closest thing to that I played against was when we played against Missouri in college.
Oh, really?
They played a little that run and gun type of offense and pressed a lot too. They called it 40 minutes of hell. So, that was Nolan Ryan. I'm Nolan Richardson. You know who coaches like that? And not only Mike D'Antoni, he did it in the NBA, but his brother's coaching Marshall. Okay.
And his brother, Dan, coached that way in high school. I watched them play. There was a classic in Myrtle Beach ball classic.
Beach ball classic.
Yeah. And I watched his team play. I watched his team play. And that's the way they played.
Okay.
And I'm sure he influenced his brother, Mike, and now he's doing it at Marshall. But you know, that's a great question. I know pretty much all of these systems and how they develop, but that one I have no idea. But he was successful. Oh, was he successful?
Yeah.
Well, Coach, I want to say thank you, man. This has been a pleasure for us to have you on our show. It's been an honor for me. I've learned so much, and I can literally talk to you for another 2-3 hours. But you know, I think
I know. You gotta take care of your family. Just be safe.
And I really do appreciate you, and I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us and answer all the questions we have, and just sitting here. I really could sit here and just listen to you for another 2 hours, man. And I really mean that.
You know, I talk too much, but hey, I really enjoyed it, guys. I really enjoyed it. And
thank you.
If you want to do it again and you have some questions, I'll be more than happy to answer the questions. I'm not going to ramble like I did today. But hey, it's great. It's been a great exercise for me, honestly. And I appreciate you calling.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you very much, Coach.
Good luck. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Dog Talk.